Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire tabletop role-playing campaign After the Fire. We are back for our final session tonight, and I am joined by not two, but three lovely guests, lovely players. We have a mystery guest amongst us, and we have the Tarleys ready to see what kind of is the culmination of their story, I guess. I checked with V and Don at the beginning before we were in the green room. I said, look, if the anxiety peaks, if you want to know who it is before we go live, I'll let you know. But they don't know either. So you're all in the same boat. So let's say hi to both of you before we start the session and see how you guys are doing. Because it's been a little while. We've been off and you guys haven't been on for a little while. So yeah. So Don, you're first on my little overlay. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I've had a pretty somewhat relatively chill couple of weeks, and so that's been good. We're having crazy, I'm sure it's like this for you all too, but in America, we're having like crazy heat waves right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad that I have electricity currently. I'm happy for that. I've been running games and working and doing things, but I've been really looking forward to this. I didn't think that Samuel Tarley would still be alive for this session, but somehow he persists despite pretty much everybody's wishes. He's still around. So I'm excited to see how it all plays out. I've got a plan. We'll see how it goes. Plans in the past have been fickle company for me. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know how you feel surviving the heat. There's a mini heat wave here in the UK, and so I've got my fan over there. I've been lucky enough to be in quite a cool room for work today during the day, so it was quite nice. But I am now in a small oven that is my office, so hopefully I'll last the evening. But we'll see. If this all melts off my face, we'll know why. And V, how you been getting on?
Hello, I've been okay apart from being ill. I think I managed to dodge con crud from UK Games Expo, and then I've managed to get ill completely detached from that. So
All doped up and ready to go.
yeah, all of the cold and flu meds. But it's not the Rona, so that's okay.
That's good. You can taste things and stuff.
I can taste things, and
Good.
my entire body doesn't hurt more than usual. But yeah, I'm afraid about this session. Susie's already been pulling on the heartstrings by sending me Miria's death letter, which had me in bits a couple of weeks back.
Of course she did.
And yeah, no, and it still hurts. Thank you, Susie. Thank you for that. I kind of can't believe Mara's made it this far, because there have been a lot of places she should have died as a character with basically no hit points and zero ability with combat. She's so far survived 2 Valyrian steel swords, a stepmother with a shadow cat. Yeah. So I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean the two
excited.
of you get the perseverance trophy for sure.
It's what being stubborn gets you in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But there were some juicy moments, particularly after the Shadowcat mauling, returning back to camp and all of that stuff. Just so super cool.
Oh, and a dog. Dog nearly killed me too. Till Papa Charlie stepped in.
Nearly finished you off. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of Westeros's favourite disaster couple.
Terrible
Did we ever
things.
come up with a couple name?
I don't know. I'm sure chat probably did somewhere.
I don't know.
Marley.
Marley? I don't know about that. Okay. Samara, that's good. All right, I'll stop messing around now. Yeah. It's our last one. Can't quite believe it. But, friends, all of us in chat, I said to Susie the other night whilst we were playing some games, I was like, we're going to be doing an after the fire thing for this, right? And she was like, of course. So that's going to come at some point. We just need to work out the timing. We were all quite busy, either freelancers or, with day jobs or both. Thanks, Black Cats. So we'll work out something. Particularly Don, I know that you're you're free every couple of weeks around this time, so we'll definitely figure out something in the near future. But yeah, with Hexcrawl now effectively on a bit of a hiatus, and this winding up gives me a chance to have a little bit of a break after this, and also basically buy a house and move into it, which is we've been saving up for ages. So we're going to be doing some real life stuff for a little while. But yeah, that is all super, super exciting and on the cards. So yeah, I guess without any further ado, we're going to jump into what is season 6, session 17 of this season. Basically double what we usually do. The Court at the End of a Sword. Samuel. The dappled light that is coming through the tree above you just flashes in front of your closed eyes as you begin to awaken. And it's not you that's being shaken, but Mara is being pushed awake by one of the guards. One of your rangers, I guess. And so Hunter is trying to rouse the both of you because he has heard something. You've been on the move now for just overnight, kind of as quickly as you can. You caught sight previously of a small host, possibly, or a forward party, bearing the banners of Lord Mathos Costain. That familiar black and yellow with the crystal cups quartered. Where have you been heading? What direction, based on who you want to see or where you kind of want to be, where have you been heading towards?
I think Samuel has been ever since having to kill Alistair. He's been lucid and not lucid, in and out of seeing colors, people who have passed in his life, his brothers, his mother, his father, and the reality, and remembering what he's doing, what he has left to push on for and fight for. And Mara there wounded too. And so he's been in and out. And when he's in, he continues to give the order to track and find the Targaryen host. So he's not in the shape to really do this himself. He's relying on his rangers. And the order would have been to avoid the Tarly host currently, and the Costain host for sure, and find the Targaryen host, Baelor's host. And so I think, he's being stirred right now from strange dreams of life that he never lived. He dreams of not war, but having sailed across the narrow sea to Essos, buying a little manor there, Mara with him, but unwounded, her face unscarred from the Shadow Cat, and starting a family as a wine merchant. He doesn't even use the Tarly name. He just goes by the name Sam. And he's dreaming that and finding a lot of peace in that. And, his friends, his fellow knights, the ones that he's wrestled with, they're somehow there too. They're there in the market when he sells his goods. And that piece is broken up by the shaking of his shoulder. And as he stirs, he looks lucidly his ranger in the eye, and he nods grimly. You can feel the pain shoot through his body immediately. And he grabs hold of the tree bark hard with his fingers to pull himself up, ripping one of his nails in the process against the bark, unsheaths his greatsword, and plants it in the ground, almost like a staff, using the pommel to kind of hold his body weight up so he can, if somebody's approaching, he can at least look like a knight.
And Hunter says to the two of you, "My lord, I'm sorry. We need to move." And he looks a little startled, a little like they've heard something. And he's been on edge for, with Mara the last couple of days.
Give me a full report. What is it you heard? What is it you've seen? What do the tracks say?
I think we're making good on the Targaryen host, further to the east, by the southeast. But the group from the north, potentially Costain's men, they took an early march, and we believe they're coming this way.
He looks down to Mara. What's Mara look like?
Mara probably also looks like hell. Although she's been used to sleeping at the camp that they've had this entire time and kind of got used to that life kind of on the move. These have not been comfortable nights. Sleeping on hard ground. They're not set up in tents with comfortable beds. But mostly I imagine that, her dress is muddy and stained. There's probably a patch where she keeps bleeding through a bandage occasionally while riding, from where Alistair had speared her through the side. And is probably in the process of Samuel having this conversation, trying to get herself up too. And still in, what's left of her armor as well, probably having slept in it and been very uncomfortable. But trying to get up, wincing with this injury, looking for something to reach out and grab, and standing, but also probably looking as exhausted as Samuel.
They bring the horses towards you, the two that you've got, and they basically stand ready.
He looks down and he offers a hand down to Mara, and he says, "That was our last rest."
And she takes his hand, but she still doesn't give him her weight as he tries to pull her up. She still tries to take some of that because she knows that he's barely standing himself, but will still take it and doesn't really say anything much, but just starts to go over to one of the horses. And let's keep moving.
He follows her slowly. He sets his golden half-melted bear helm back on his head, sheathes his sword over his back, and with the help of his rangers, climbs up behind Mara on the horse. And he doesn't lean forward too much. He tries to keep himself straight, and he says, "No matter where it is this ride takes us, we are the Lord and Lady of House Tarly. We are the defenders of the Reach. We deserve and demand respect and fair treatment."
She takes a moment to take in what he's saying. Well, let's hope that we can have it, and that Baelor is as merciful as the stories say.
Yes, we need to find my father.
Your father? Samuel, don't you remember?
There's a long pause. He doesn't answer immediately. And he says, yes, of course I remember.
She kind of reaches back and pats the side of his leg, because that's probably the only bit she can kind of reach while trying to keep one hand on the reins of this horse. We are going to go home. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we are going to go home at the end of this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have lost so much and we have gained so little. She's kind of leaning back towards him so they can have this conversation without having to talk at full volume while they wait for everyone else to saddle up and get ready and grab whatever needs to be attached to horses.
There's sort of a sharp ringing, but a little strained laugh that echoes out from inside his helm. It says, "It's not over. We haven't lost anything. The game still continues."
Mara doesn't say anything to that. She kind of, there's a little bit of a smile at the corner of her lip, but she doesn't say anything. And Samuel can probably tell she's trying to sit up straight, because he's probably, whether he realizes it or not, still leaning into her. And she's got this injury right at her waist where she's like trying to keep herself upright to steady him and this horse.
Yeah, it's got to be very painful for both of them.
Yeah, I imagine it's very uncomfortable. And I think as they start moving, there's just the moment where, kind of pulling on that laugh, trying to find something lighter, Mara very quietly says, "I remember when this used to be the other way around." And kind of laughs a bit herself.
He laughs again as well until it starts hurting, and then you can hear a hiss behind you. He goes quiet.
I feel like that only makes Mara laugh more, and there's probably this really awkward, the both of them laughing when it looks like there's nothing to laugh about while both being in terrible pain for a good couple of minutes.
And Hunter's horse strides up next to yours with him and the other ranger riding on his kind of to his back. And he looks over at the both of you, a little perplexed for a second. But then he says, "This way. My lord, we can either cross the river, perhaps make a little bit of a quicker journey. There's a small stream just this, to the south here. Or we can try and head off the advancing force and maybe make for the east as quickly as we can."
Are you one of my hunters?
Yes.
And have you served House Tarley your entire life?
Since I was a young lad.
Then I imagine, if that's true, you are able to find a trace of the large army that we're pursuing and advise us on the best course forward.
He swallows, looks down for a second, and then he looks towards the south, the direction he indicated, and he says, "It's a more difficult journey, my lord, but it's quicker, and I think I can buy us some time."
Don't worry about us. Take us there as fast as you can.
He nods, and then he kicks the horse into a gallop. And Mara, you're ready to follow.
Yeah, I think that's, as soon as she sees Hunter kick that horse into a gallop, Samuel can probably feel the little bit of her that sighs, knowing how much this is gonna fucking hurt over a long period of time. And she kind of readjusts on the reins, gets herself centered, takes a deep breath like you do right before you know something's about to hurt, and does the same to follow.
Okay. I want to see what your results are. So I want to see each of you make a ride test.
This is going to be not great. Okay, it's not horrible. 12.
Okay.
I rolled all 6s. That's never going to happen again this session.
You used your luck up now.
Apparently.
I also rolled a 6, which gives me a result of 2.
Okay. It is difficult for you, Samuel, but you manage to stay on the back of that horse as you reach the shallows of the stream that Hunter spoke about. The stones make for an uneven ride, and so Mara, you rather expertly, maybe it's the adrenaline rush or the stakes that are involved, but you manage to focus yourself and see where there are dips or little potholes within the flow of the stream and the surrounding kind of rocky ground around it. And so you manage to jump a couple, hop over the stream. Samuel, for maybe just a couple of seconds, you think you might slip off. You think you've just lost a bit of footing, but you grab around Mara's waist and it twinges.
She absolutely cries out in pain, not expecting it, because she's so focused on not fucking this up and sending the both of them off of this horse. Definitely cries out pretty more loudly than she would have done had she known Samuel was going to grab her for support.
And so, hanging on for dear life, you cross the stream and then you head east along its southern bank. And Hunter has done probably a rather clever thing, it occurs to you. He's not only still tracking eastward towards the possibly advancing Targaryen army, but because he's crossed over some water, he's maybe to the dogs that you can occasionally hear yapping in the very distance, in the far distance, he's managed to obscure your sense and your trail across the meadows and the grasslands here in the Reach. And after maybe a hard, difficult hour's ride, you slow down to a trot, and you're able to just take it a little bit easier. Take it a little bit slower, a little bit smoother. In the break, in the pause, maybe for around midday, you're not even quite sure of the time anymore. Feels like you've been riding for hours, maybe weirdly even days. You stop again just by the edge of the stream, and Hunter and the other guard are able to catch a couple of small fish for you. But they're having to be eaten raw. They don't want to cook fire. They don't want to mark their position. They don't want to give away anything. And so to regain your strength, you're offered these fresh but raw small white fish from the river. But it gives you an opportunity to sit, to eat, to discuss any plans, or even just share a moment between the two of you.
I think Mara probably declines to eat the fish, mostly out of worry that if she is pregnant, that would be a bad idea. Because she doesn't know if she is, and she's already admitted to Samuel that she, for once, did as she was told when he told her to do something. So I think she probably declines to eat it and offers, if Samuel's going to have any to eat, for him to have the rest. Is the most fucked up of the two of them. And I imagine she's probably sitting there having taken off her breastplate, and while they're eating, she is re-bandaging the wound at her waist, probably, losing another 6 inches off of her dress to do it.
But Hunter and the other guard can also essentially try and kind of wash the makeshift bandages as well in the stream, so that they've so that you've got some fresh, possibly maybe the next day or so if you might need them.
Yeah.
I think Sam will probably changes out his bandages again too, or asks Mara to help him, and he always has a large appetite, but right now it's like even bigger. He doesn't think twice about taking Mara's food from her, and he messily, greasily devours the cooked fish, even while his bandages are being changed. He's starving. Right, and he's quiet for a little while. He kind of like looks out over the vista where they are, down to the water that's nearby, and he swallows hard and he nods and he says, "We'll take Bren back to Marcia. We'll make peace with your family."
We are never going to have peace with them, Samuel. Never. She is going to look at us and blame us for what happened at Summerhall.
We'll return her.
I don't have any family left except you. They have all gone. I did that myself when I killed Ellery with Miria. Marcia made her position very clear when she tried to kill me. And Simon, Lords know where he is now, but...
Simon's our friend.
Simon serves the realm, the Citadel, the Crown. He didn't even speak to me the last time I saw him at the trial. You are the family I have now. I've made my peace with that. When my brothers are older and adults themselves, maybe there is reconciliation there when they are old enough to understand and form their own opinions of what happened here. All I care about is us putting an end to whatever it is that we started, so we can go home and start our family and leave the business of war to other people, other times.
There's a sort of a hardness that passes over his face. His eyes still look glassy, but his expression goes hard. And he says, "War is our family. We are first in battle. We always will be."
We lost this one.
No, not yet. Not yet.
The Reach forces have gone, Samuel. We don't even know what's left of our army. We can't take on the Targaryens. At most, we can surrender and hope they let us go home. That, or they ask us to join as their banners. To this rebellion, it's done.
We can unite the Reach. We will, Mara. We will. This war is not done. Blackfyre still lingers in the south.
And you nearly died. And so did I.
Mm.
Where are our allies now? Where is Harris? Where is the rest of the forces that didn't die on that field? Because I didn't see them coming back.
I hope I find Harris. But, Mara, it is going to be all right. We are not dead. Our army was not defeated. Not our army. Not House Tarly's army.
Are we supposed to wage a rebellion by ourselves? Because the Targaryens will call more of their banners. The Westerlands will not be harried by those pirates for much longer. And the North will eventually come south.
There is no rebellion. There is only two sides of a coin, and one ends up face up, one ends face down. And do you still believe in the gods?
For a better reach and a better future for our children and its people, of course I do. But I still believe it in a way that isn't full of bloodshed. Look what we tried to do, and look what happened.
We saved lives, as many as we could. We'll
And we
continue
can
to
save
do
more
so.
now by trying to make peace with our enemies.
Making peace is what this was always about. Always.
I know. But I don't see how the strength of what army we have left is going to help. We don't have an option. We have to surrender. And we have to hope that we can make those terms in our favor, because we don't really have a bargaining chip, Samuel. We don't.
He smiles slightly despite himself. And he says, last night while I slept, I dreamed of the old gods. It was a strange dream. I don't know if they're real. I know they're real to you. If they are, perhaps they'll favor us today.
I don't think we've had the favor of the gods since we murdered people at our wedding.
His expression darkens at that, and he begins to shovel what's left of the greasy fish into his mouth, and he looks away.
We're going to have to talk about it at some point, Samuel. I haven't even gotten to talk about it. I still don't know how I feel about what I did to Ellery. They don't teach us that when you're growing up as a lady. They don't teach us what happens when you sentence a man to die, because we don't hold houses. We don't get to hold court like that. We don't get that power over men's lives. They get that over ours. Who'd lost me my sister, and I know it was the right thing to do because he wouldn't bend the knee. There has been so much death despite us trying not to have bloodshed. Are we even going to talk about yesterday? About Alistair? Or are we going to pretend that didn't happen either?
Looks down to his knees and says, I was taught when I was very young that the time for thinking, the time for talking about your feelings and about regrets and about hopes is peacetime. It will only cloud your ability to make good decisions.
No.
To be strong.
My ability to make good decisions is based on how I feel. Because I don't have a sword. I can't swing one to solve my problems. God, I wish I could. But I feel horrible. I watched you kill a man. I never asked if you loved him. because I knew you never wanted me to, so I didn't. But yesterday I saw that look in your eye, because it's the same way you look at me. And I feel horrible, because like it was my fault. And I would have let him come back with us. Even though I hated him. All he had to do was come back to Hornhill with us. I would have figured it out. I would have found a way for you. And then he did what he did. And I had to watch you kill a man I know you love. And I don't know if you blame me for that. I don't know if I should feel guilty. But how can I make decisions wondering if you resent me right now?
Samuel stretches a hand towards you, probably thick with fish grease still.
She'll still take it.
He squeezes it pretty hard. He's still strong despite his wounds. And he says, it doesn't matter what we feel, what I feel, or what I felt. Our lives are a series of choices. We make choices. Sometimes those choices align with what's in our heart. Sometimes it's impossible to make choices that allow you to be everything that you are on the inside. But it's just choices, Mara. And I chose you. That's all that matters. You don't need to feel guilty. I made my choice. And I stand by every choice that I ever made. No matter the consequences.
I just wanted you to know that I would have let you choose both. That I wouldn't have made you choose. I didn't want that. I thought I did when I told him I would kill him if I ever saw him again, but I didn't.
He pats the top of your hand and squeezes it again and kind of looks out over the river. And he winces and hisses again, sharp pain through his chest where he's wounded. And he says, his eyes going glassy, we should get going if we're going to make the tournament. This is going to be the one. I can feel it. I'm going to win this one. And I'll crown you when I do.
She takes a moment and looks at him. Tell me that you're making metaphors here.
You can see his eyes squint, his face kind of twists. He looks very confused.
Samuel, darling, we're not going to a tournament.
My
We're
lord,
going to Baelor's camp.
you hear Hunter's voice. And he looks at the two of you for a second and makes maybe a little bit of sense of what's going on. And he then turns to you, Mara, and says, my lady, we need to go.
Yes, I think we should. Get the horses ready. Just give me a minute.
And he goes to collect them.
And I think it's once they're off collecting the horses and there isn't anyone to accidentally overhear, Mara will push up onto her knees, take Samuel's face in her hands. Look at me. Please tell me you know where we are and what we're doing. Because you don't seem yourself. We're not going to a tournament, love. We're going to Baelor's camp. We're going to surrender. There is no more battle. Our army is running. And I need you with a clear head. And she's genuinely concerned. She's looking at you more worried than you've ever seen her in her entire life.
See for a second that confusion turns to anger in his eyes. And then it softens after a few moments. And he nods slowly and he says, yes, we're going to go return Lady Forlorn to the prince who fled.
Sam will promise me something. Please. When we get there, let me start talking first. Please.
He opens his mouth as though he's going to object, and then he hisses again in pain. Yes, you are better with people than I am.
Suppose one of us has to be. But also, I think that you may have taken a few too many knocks to the head that I'm sure will have cleared up by the time we get there, but just in case. And she's really trying to hide this concern now behind a smile, but she still looks concerned. She brings herself up and offers her hand to Samuel, knowing that she can't pull him up, but she goes for the gesture all the same.
I think
your men will help you up onto the horses.
And I imagine he tries to push one of his men away and the other one grabs him because he can't do it by himself. And he finally gives in. He gets
Mara,
him on the
100%.
horse. He puts the helm back down.
She chastises him, let them help, Sam. And then we'll proceed to get back on the horse. Still very concerned, watches the way that Samuel moves as I imagine she gets on the horse first, watches the way he's interacting with their guards, especially with Hunter, because Mara's told him what happened, and so far he's said nothing about it, which concerns her.
So with a couple more hours ride into the afternoon, you manage to eventually see an army on the march. It's, even in your kind of hazy state, Samuel, you're able to tell this is not probably the size of the force that you fought out in the meadows of the Reach. But it's certainly a sizable column of it. And whether there are forward scouts or skirmishing parties further out from it, you're not sure. But the both of you can see this and the Targaryen banners flying from its standard bearers.
Does it look like, from the way that they're formed up, or just from the kinds of guards here, that it looks like Baelor is with them?
You could assume that, yeah, from the size of the column and, yeah, the type of guards.
Do we send a rider? Or do we just roll up and risk being shot at by their forward scouts?
White flag. White flag.
Mara looks around. I don't think we have anything for a white flag.
He grunts and he looks over to Hunter and he points at him with a gauntleted finger. Your undergarments. Strips him off. Make a flag. A white flag.
Hunter dismounts, and then kind of on the other side of the horse to you, he undresses, and you hear a tearing as well before he gets his trousers back on. And then he finds a stick, essentially, like a long stick, branch that's fallen from a tree nearby, and fashions a long, kind of white, tatty kind of flag.
You ride ahead first. Wave the flag. We'll be behind.
And he does so. He rides forward. And do you keep him kind of like in sight?
Yeah. I think, if he's having a moment of clarity, Samuel understands the range of archers. So he just wants to make sure we don't enter the range of archers before Hunter does.
Cool. And so you stay as far back as you can whilst keeping him in sight. And he approaches the column, which stops, begins to form up around him. And then there's kind of a stillness. There's a little bit of men coming and going. But the column begins to deform and begins to kind of settle. And then Hunter turns around, and with about a dozen Targaryen riders around him, rides over to where you are.
I think seeing this, Mara reaches back and finds Samuel's hand. And even though it's gauntleted, she presses her fingers around his, even with the metal digging into her fingers, and leans back, and she's afraid. She's really trying not to be, but she presses her hand against him. Whatever happens now, I love you.
He doesn't squeeze because he doesn't want to hurt her, but he does kind of lean forward. You can feel the weight of his body probably against the back of your neck. And he says, I love you. We will get through this.
And before the riders actually reach up, before they're close enough to really make out anything other than figures in the distance, Mara carefully unlaces her fingers from his gauntleted hand and kind of stretches them a bit after they've been pressed into that metal, and wraps them back around the reins of her horse and tries her very best to sit up straight and dignified, although I imagine that she's leaning to one side to take the weight off of the side where she's injured, and tries to put on that face.
Samuel draws Lady Forlorn, not his great sword, but the long sword, the Valyrian steel long sword from Sir Gawain Corbray. And he doesn't wield it, in a way that like he's not actually gripping it like a weapon. He reverses the hilt and he lays down next to his lap, his underhand on the flat of the blade, just to present it. And he tries to straighten his back as much as he can as he waits for the riders to come.
Okay. Once the riders encircle you, a knight takes his horse a couple of steps forward and then says to you, Lord Samuel Tarley?
Yes.
Drop your weapons and remove your helm.
He draws in a breath through his nose, and he extends slightly the flat of the blade in the direction of this knight. And he says, this is not my weapon, but I return it to you now. It belonged to Sir Corbray, a great knight, an honorable man.
You see him consider that for a second before he kicks his horse into a walk towards you. And your horses are neck to neck. And he looks at the hilt of Lady Forlorn, and then he puts one mittened hand on it and pulls it away from you.
He doesn't resist. Afterwards, he raises his hands and loosens his helm and slides it from his head and hooks it into a curved sort of metal hook that's part of his saddlebag section of his horse. So his helm is like set on the side of the horse. And then very slowly, he reaches over his shoulder and he draws his great sword. He holds it flat across his body and he looks directly into the eyes of this knight and he says, "We've come in peace to seek an audience with the prince. This is my blade, my family's blade. Keep good care of it until it's returned to me."
He nods. Another knight from the circle rides forward slowly and then takes it. And the knight looks you in the eyes and says, "They say the king owns all Valyrian steel in the end, even as it is passed down through Westerosi houses."
There's a flash of pride and a little bit of confusion on Samuel's face at that. And he says, "That is for greater men than you to decide."
He extends a gloved hand out kind of behind him towards the column. "After you."
I think Mara takes a moment as she watches this exchange go down. And before they move, she unbuckles the sword belt because she carries a rapier too. And just for a moment, turns to one of the knights. "Would you not have me disarm either?" And just hands it over just to make a point, just a little bit of a power play point of, you thought to ask him for his weapons, but you didn't think to ask me, because he didn't address her either. She's not impressed about that. And hands it out just with a look of, "I'm still here."
Yeah. The knight that you extend your weapon out towards doesn't seem to particularly take any surprise to that or take any side in the exchange, but rides forward slowly and then takes the weapons before just taking a second glance around your like breastplate, your bodice that you've had constructed and stuff. And he says to you, "No hidden daggers, I hope."
If I had a hidden dagger, would I have handed you the sword that you didn't even notice or ask for? Do I look like I'm capable of murdering anybody with a dagger? And she just points to the huge gaping hole in the bottom of her breastplate where it should cover her waist. And there's, I imagine, the metal still blown out and torn.
And he looks at you for a second and shrugs, kind of nods, and then begins to move with you and the circle of knights towards the column. When you eventually reach that column, it's like being back in a kind of ramshackle version of your camp, but without the tents up just yet. Camp followers and the kind of like support troops are beginning to erect some tents and such, so it looks like they're actually beginning to make camp now suddenly. And you are held at the kind of precipice of this camp for an uncomfortable amount of time, but just a few minutes really, as they begin to set up these tents. And there's a larger tent towards the middle that gets set up as a priority, and then once that's ready, you are dismounted, and then the two of you are marched forward. And into this tent, you can see, even before you've entered it, the two main flaps of it having been kind of drawn open. So there's a large arch, large triangular arch that's inviting you inside. Prince Baelor, in kind of disheveled half plate, sits on a rather lush camp chair. His dark hair and his dark eyes being cast in shadow inside this tent as it kind of beats off a little of the autumn sun, even though it's still quite chilly. His hair is a little rougher than you come to expect, and Mara, you'll remember that he kept it very short and clipped and very well kept. And his clean shavenness is now a stubble that he hasn't been able to deal with for the last couple of days. Samuel, you notice his nose slightly off-center, an old war wound that you recognize, perhaps from what you've seen of older, trainers or sword masters that you've worked with in the past. But he sits quietly and in a relaxed fashion regards you, his hands just crossed and his fingers interlinked just by his lap, and he waits for the two of you to be stepped inside the tent. And so you're marched forward, and there are maybe only a couple of different knights and lords with him. You recognize the Lord Florent from the battle, and you actually made light work of the Florent flank. But Lord Florent is still here and sat towards the side of the prince. And you recognize a couple of other colours, as well as a tabard with a young lord wearing it with a yellow field, and two Grim Reapers facing towards the centre of the shield with a hay bale in the middle. But Baelor is your real target here, I guess. And so you are announced, Lord and Lady Samwell and Mara Tarly of Hornhill. And he is not introduced, but he sits and he quietly considers the two of you. And then he says, "You have come in surrender, my lord."
Samuel kind of pulls his very, very sweaty, and I imagine he's running a fever, curly hair out of his face and back around the side of his head. He almost pastes it to the back of his neck to hold it in place. And then he tries to stand straight, maybe stumbles like just a small step, and straightens himself up. He bows only with his neck, not from his shoulders down. And he says, "Yes, we've come to make an offer of peace. I believe you should hear my wife's words, my prince."
Your wife's words, my lord? You can't speak for your house, for yourself?
I can, and I will. But part of what I fight for is so that those with wisdom can use that wisdom to better this realm. And my wife is wiser than I am.
It's a wise husband that acknowledges that. Lady Mara.
And Mara will acknowledge him, and she tries her very best to curtsy and realizes she can't, as she immediately, without even, it's not very graceful, but grips at her side and instead just takes to bowing her head. Your Grace.
You might not think I recognize you, considering your face now, but I remember you. I remember the young lady pacing into Lord Leo's solar with a blade drawn.
You shall be pleased to know, Your Grace, that I handed mine over to your guards before we entered camp.
That does please me.
And she smiles a little bit, not that she's making light of it, but in an appreciation that he does remember who she is, that they have met before. And she still grips at her side with her arm wrapped across herself as she tries to hold herself up. We do come to offer terms of peace and surrender. Please understand. And she kind of also realizes in this moment, she's also addressing the other lords in this room. And she doesn't speak to them directly, but she takes a brief moment to look around at them. What we did not do because we wanted bloodshed. We did not do this because of hatred. We did this because although we have a seat at the table, the name that our house carries, we did not feel heard. We had no power at that table to enact the changes that are needed for the Reach to flourish in its future, for its children to flourish, for its houses to flourish. Like everybody sitting in this room, the two of us are more than just single people. We are the people that we represent. We are the people that we care for. The small folk who live in our towns and our hamlets. We are charged with trying to make decisions that are best for them and their children's futures too. The future that we wanted was not war. It was not bloodshed. But it was for a better Reach. And perhaps we can look on that now and see that maybe in many ways we were naive, screaming children who didn't feel like they were heard. But please know that when we come to make peace, it is because that is what we have always wanted. Peace, prosperity, and the ability to enact change for the better, for the lives of our children and our people in this kingdom.
As you kind of round off that last sentence, those last couple of phrases, you lose Baylor a little bit as he's distracted by maybe a guard or a knight or a steward who comes around and whispers into his ear. And he nods, and then he is a little distracted, but he kind of ends with you speaking those last few words. And he sighs, and he kind of straightens himself up a little bit, and you notice that's difficult for him as well. And
Yeah,
he says, it is. But he says, yes, that's why we are here, peace. And that's all very well. I'm afraid that we have other business here, business I've been expecting for quite some time and is quite important. And he doesn't really say anything else to you, but he gestures, and you are turned and moved to the side of the tent, and then you are put to your knees by the two guards who are in full Targaryen plate and held there as in to the tent, and you can hear them walking, this kind of group of men or travelers, before you can see them. But as they now break into the tent, as they actually get through under the archway, you see this strange entourage of what looks like maybe underworld-like folk, smugglers, vagabonds, and then you notice in amongst the kind of middle of the group even a couple of acolyte maesters, young men, even kind of older boys who are with them. You notice another lady as well. She's slight and lean, with dark, short hair and deep brown eyes and wily features. But at the head of this strange group stands a man, presumably in maester's garb, and he's wearing a fool's gold mask, kind of shiny and strangely composed, and a rod with a kind of fool's gold head on it. And as he reveals the mask, his face is that of your younger or elder brother, Simon.
Elder brother.
I forget which. And this is where Jason should come on.
6 seasons and you still don't know whether or not I'm the older brother?
I don't know. It's been a while.
Mara's only the eldest of the girls. She's the youngest before Miria.
I know I've been gone for a long time, but come on.
You Greenmonts, you all look the same to me.
Well, a lot's changed, so anybody have a quick recap? No. Yes, so let me see. Head of the entourage, mask falls away. You also see there is a fool's gold rod that he's just sort of, it would be a staff if it were longer, but instead he's just sort of twirling it and in a very showman-like manner, bows very deeply before the prince and straightens back up. You almost think he sees you, Mara, out of the corner of his eye, but he doesn't seem to react as he says very plainly, "Your Grace, it is a wonder to be in your audience, and with such glad tidings as well."
Maester, I'm glad you finally arrived. What news from Old Town?
Oh, plenty, I suppose. The acolytes carry the bulk of the information, and he'll step aside and, with his back to both Mara and Samuel, like pointedly avoiding their field of view, will usher the rest of his entourage in, giving a nod to Ren, of course.
Yeah. And the acolytes, like, probably have got, they've probably carried these stuff on their backs, like ledgers and documents and stuff.
Like tons of info. Like it's for every acolyte, I imagine there's like a crate, and for each crate there's like 10 ledgers. Like all about as thick as my head. But as this information is brought in, he'll just sort of play up to the crowd and says, "My lords and all else assembled, thank you so much for your patience. I understand, of course, that these sorts of crimes do take time to uncover, but rest assured, with the assistance of the Lady Fae, we have unimaginable amounts of evidence against those who would perform acts of treachery and treason against the Iron Throne."
Thank you, Maester. What of your conclusions and the houses therein involved?
The extent of the rot is far more discouraging than perhaps I first believed. I thought for an absurdly long amount of time that Costain was the only one truly responsible for the bulk of the evasion. However, it has since come to light that the houses Peak, Oakheart, to an extent, and the House Tarley have been reticent in their duties to the crown. In matters of taxation, at least. I'm sure you can surmise by their other conduct what the motivation might be for such underhanded dealings.
This information, Lord Leo, should soon come to bear and to know. It's very important that it was his levies, essentially. that were cut short.
Which he failed to enforce, yes. Quite spectacularly, I might add. Some of the information present here was quite frightening from a certain point of view.
Very well. Please sit. Take the weight of the road off your feet. I invite your group to enjoy the hospitality of our camp, what little it is.
I'll turn to the sort of rough group and just smile and say, "Don't eat them out of house and home, lads." And we'll go right next to Mara and Samuel and just sit.
After taking a little wine, Baelor motions the two of you back over. But if you wanted to do have a little thing before he does, he's got a moment to collect himself and his 2 wounds.
Yeah.
So.
I think Samuel, just very simply, as Baylor's back is turned, he's put on a proud face, and there's a few moments where like he starts to get confused, and then he kind of snaps back, and he hears the bulk of what Simon has to say. And when Simon comes to sit down next to where they're kneeling, he glances aside to Simon just briefly and says quietly, "Whether or not you believe it, I'm very glad that you are well."
I don't, but I appreciate the sentiment.
I don't think Mara says anything. I think during that exchange is a moment when Faye's name is mentioned, that her eyes, she doesn't turn her body or her head, it's just her eyes to look at Samuel. But she doesn't look at Simon. She looks at him as he walks in and his mask is revealed. And after that, she's looking at the ground, listening the whole time. And when he sits beside them, she hears the exchange that goes on between them. And she's just sat there, jaw locked. Her hands, one of them like crunched up in her skirts. The other one by her side, as a part of her wants to reach out for Samuel, but just manages to hold herself back because they still have to keep up appearances here. But she's uncomfortable for probably reasons neither of them could figure out just by looking at her. But she's definitely uncomfortable at Simon's proximity to her right now.
There's a brief moment where Samuel, noticing kind of Mara squirm next to him a little bit, just kind of looks aside to her and he smiles. It's a reassuring smile. It's a boyish smile. And for a moment, if it weren't for his sweat and maybe him being a little paler than he normally is, the burn on his scalp along one side, he looks younger, much younger. He looks boyish.
Mara doesn't smile back at him with her lips, but there's definitely a smile in her eyes. It's just for that moment, he does look like a boy again. And it reassures her just for a second, that smile. Because Samuel doesn't smile when there's no reason to smile. And it gives her just a little bit of hope that perhaps this isn't going as terribly as it feels like it is right now, the both of them on their knees.
You are brought to your feet again, and then you are moved to the center of the tent. And Baelor looks back up towards the two of you and says, "You mentioned an offer. Words are wind, and it is all very well us conjecturing about peace, the prosperity of the Reach, all of which has been negatively affected by this conflict. What is the offer that you wish to bring to the crown?"
Samuel takes a short stutter breath and a small step forward, not approaching the prince, but a small step forward. And he turns his chin up slightly, and he says, "Your Grace, we spoke before the battle, and I spoke to you then of the passion I feel for the Reach, its small folk, the houses that have suffered these past years, and the crimes we have witnessed in our own realm. We rode to meet you in honorable battle. But House Tarly has made allies with fools and greedmongers. Lord Harris Ball, threw that battle into a bloody field where it should not have taken place. Many men died because the wrong person led those forces. And Lord Costain long has lingered in the shadows of the Reach, manipulating events, avoiding his own blame for his part that he has played. I will not speak of Costain's doing, but if you have faith in Lady Faye Rowan, her honor and her wisdom, I encourage you to summon her and ask her to speak of Lord Costain. That aside, my Grace, I faced you in battle. And Sir Corbray, a man who I had great respect for, who I grew up watching in the tilts. Good people died on both sides. Their blood is on my hands. It's on all of our hands. I would see House Tarly, my house, my men, my small folk who are slaughtered in the field, those who remain. I would see them find peace. I would see the Reach find peace. And there is a greater army coming from the south. We must be united. I thought that I would unite us, and I was wrong. And I take responsibility for that. But I will offer you our banners. I will offer you not just surrender, but to fight beside you and unite the Reach and end this war. I do not offer it without accepting responsibility, Your Grace. I would stand trial for my treason and my crimes, and I only ask in return that you give me 2 years to serve father and heir and ensure the future of the Reach.
And he thinks about that. It's a lot to consider. Your treason is not really up for debate or question. There's no need for a trial. We fought. You acted against the crown, against the Iron Throne, captured your own liege lord, Lord Paramount of the Reach, Warden South. And you appeal to my mercy.
When the prince mentions Leo, there's a little bit of confusion and a flash of ire on Samuel's face and eyes, and he looks around for a moment, almost as though he expects Leo to be there. He doesn't see him, and he sort of comes back to where he is, and he nods through the confusion. And he says, "Not just your mercy, your grace, your wisdom. Trial, no trial. There are many things that I deserve. And if you give me 2 years, 2 years, at the end of that, I accept death. I accept the wall. I accept whatever it is you deem, your grace deems appropriate."
See, it is my wisdom that makes me think that you are not fit for the title that you now bear. Gods know what happened to your father. I assume an unfortunate casualty of this war somehow. Well, so goes the rumour of this camp.
A sickness, Your Grace, that took him. He was ill before our wedding.
A sickness that took him because you sieged our home. Rightfully so. But a sickness nevertheless.
You would hear a murmur of like amongst vagabonds and like, oh, sickness, right? Yeah, sure. Died in his sleep. Totally.
Your Grace, you are right. We do ask for your mercy. There are things that they say about mercy. When it is hardest to give, that is when it is truly given. Mercy, when there is an easy route, is not mercy.
Please spare me the sycophantics. There's room for that at court, but we are here marching around the Reach because we are trying to root out this problem.
We are offering you our banners, our men, our arms.
All of which are all perfectly good. But my wisdom suggests that the two of you are not going to be helpful.
I think, my grace, that you underestimate myself and my wife. And I am not asking for my title when this is done. I'm asking for the future of my house and my family. The title should pass to my rightfully born son, my heir, so that House Tarly in the future can continue to serve the Reach and the realm. It is a cornerstone of this
Maester,
nation.
The Citadel holds records of all heir apparents and family trees of all the major houses amongst these 7 kingdoms, is it not?
Quite exhaustive record, which I myself have had the pleasure of viewing on more than one occasion.
I'm sure an heir apparent can make themselves apparent should the need arise. A cousin, an uncle.
Perhaps. Although, given the extent of the treachery which lurks within that camp, I would advise against perhaps even the most strenuous of connections be installed. At least, of course, without proper investigation.
See, Hornhill doesn't need an heir from your belly to survive. And from where I'm sitting, can do far better without it. He glances over at a chair that's to his left. It's absent of anyone sitting in it, but Lady Forlorn has been leant up against one of the arms.
With respect, Your Grace, while you may not hold any high opinion of us after what we have done, that is entirely understandable. We rallied an army, half of the Reach. We are quite capable. We would be an asset to your forces in putting out this war. not just because we want peace, because we want an heir to ensure the future of our house, to put an end to any more bloodshed for which we may have had a hand in starting. This isn't just about making it right to you and your family and the crown and the Reach, but right to the gods too.
He laughs at that like a little bit. Let's roll some dice too. So I'm going to roll for him. He is the prince. This is his little court at the end of a sword. So he's going to go first. I'm going to take an assist die from Simon if he'll offer it too. Nice.
Absolutely. Like, this is the guy I've been sucking up to for like seasons now.
I'm chucking a bonus dice. All right. Let's whack that. Oh, actually, I can do the options, can't I? There you go, V. This is the how does this sheet work again scenario.
I forgot to get the cheat sheet up, so there we go.
That's all right.
Could you send it to me in Zoom chat, please?
Yeah. One sec.
Thank you.
So this is a 15 against Samwell's intrigue defense.
Let's see. I don't feel like his knightly oath matters here. They're on opposite sides of everything, right? So
yeah, maybe not. I
Maybe
think he's
not.
I think he's done enough to like not
Yeah.
have it like work
I
for
think
him this time.
yeah, so that'll be 2 degrees of success.
Okay. And convince is gonna be, so that's gonna be double his war rank, so 8 composure damage.
Okay.
Or 8 composure lost. Remember your disposition rating towards him, which gives you some like armor against that. So you'll reduce that incoming composure loss.
He has to actually subtract a die from that because of my sinister trait.
Ooh. Then that is a 10.
For the first round only.
Yeah, okay. That is a 10.
I soak that.
So yeah, that would be probably 4 composure loss then coming at you, because I guess that's just 1 degree of success. Alrighty. Which of the two of you want to be the like active like roller this round? You've both done quite a bit of talking. I feel like Mara's done maybe most of the propositions
can
here.
Can we both take a shot? I have like 1 keep die and
you
like
have
1 chance to make it.
Yeah, you have to choose which of you goes each round.
Then it should definitely be Mara. I'll assist.
Yeah, I think Mara is trying to, very much her approach here is backing up what Samuel said, but making it very clear of like, we're not asking you to forget about anything that we've done, because we already know that that's done. We can't sit here and go, we didn't do a treason. We absolutely hold up that we did, but it's more about putting in for, we shouldn't be punishing future generations of this house for what we've done. And also making the point of, look what we did do though. We could be better allies than just getting rid of us. That, you know, if we have learned our lesson and take the responsibility, we are willing to be allies, and fairly decent ones at that, judging by past events, not in your favor. So I guess I'm gonna go in for a convince. This is where I have to remember how everything works, because I haven't looked at this sheet in ages.
Does Mara get the marriage keep die?
Part of this as well is trying to keep her and Samuel together, because that was their whole thing, was finding a way to figure that out.
Check your qualities too, because Dom, that should have been 5 incoming composure loss. If that makes any difference.
It does. Yeah, he doesn't soak all of it if it's 5.
So I get bonus dice to this. Hold on, I've pressed the wrong button. And then I add a +2 for her other things. I remember how this works now. It's 20 with 3
20
sixes.
is 2 degrees of success, and it's not double his intrigue. So 2 degrees of success, twice your will rank. What's twice your will rank?
8.
Cool, thank you. Lovely jubbly. All right. And so in the second round, Baelor asks, "It sounds, my lord, my lady, as if you honestly care more for your own life as it may continue through a son than you care for the reach that you speak of and the house that you swear you have devoted your life to. 2 years to allow you to give your heir the ability to inherit by producing one. But we have already covered, have we not, that the house does not need progeny from yourself to survive, even to thrive."
Is it not the want of any person who wants a family that their children are better than they are? That both of us could want a better future for our house, and either of us are able to give it with the mistakes that we've made.
What mistakes would you pass on to this child that you would mother?
I'm sure the same mistakes that every parent passes on. Every one of our parents that passed on to us. But not this one. Never this one.
Your Grace, my wife's part in this, Lady Mara's part in this, was keeping her oath to me, but I am the one who united the Reach. I am the one who planned every action that we took against the other lords of this realm. And I am not asking that you allow me to continue to live in my house after the 2 years. You can sentence me to the gallows. You can assign me to the wall, to the King's Guard, whatever you deem fair. I do care about my family, and that is not a weakness, but I care just as much about the Reach. So if you are wise, my Grace, consider this. If we can find an accord, one that certainly does not favor me, not in the long run, then you need not track down and fight my armies, my house, and you know the strength of House Tarly. You bear the wounds of the battle just as I do. But I do not only offer my house, I offer to help unite the other houses that I would seek amnesty for, bring into the fold, so that you can focus your war efforts on the end goal, and that is Blackfyre, that is Bittersteel, that is Endorn, and not the Reach. House Ironwood and Lady Miria, House Rowan and Caswell and Karen and Will. These houses may yet unite in your favor instead of being enemies. You can make peace here. That is what I offer. Whether or not that is honor, I don't care. It is peace. And you have that power, my Grace.
He sits quietly for a moment and looks at you and listens to what you have to say. I'm going to spend my bonus die here to roll a 6 against your passive deception to try and retarget.
That is not enough.
I didn't think so. Okay, no worries. God damn it, Baylor. Need NPCs with like all 7s for their stats. Okay. So Samuel, why don't you make me a convince test then?
Okay. I will use my keep die.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see here. Still probably not going to be great.
Is that your glory, that keep die? I forget.
I think I got one in from chat, didn't I, earlier?
Oh, did you?
I thought I saw Kurt give me one.
I think Kurt dropped some bits.
I missed it. Okay, yeah.
So how do I add? Oh gosh, here, I'll just do this. And change it back. Do I get any bonuses for persuasion? I don't think so. Nope.
This is convince, yeah?
Convince. It's an 11, which is almost as high as I possibly could have rolled with my wounds.
Afraid it is not enough with his intrigue defense.
Do I get an assist?
Yeah, if
from
you'd had a
Mara?
bonus, die from Mara, would that have improved anything? I guess roll another d6.
I have to roll. Yeah, I have to roll to roll a 6 here for it to improve.
For it to be better, yeah. Well, no, you have to roll a 5 for it to improve the result. But yeah, unfortunately,
the answer is no.
The best 3 results are the 5, the 6, and the 4. So unfortunately, yeah, it's he's trying to look kind of into you to really see what you're kind of playing, and so his words don't really like land with him. He says, "It is interesting to hear you speak of peace when all of your actions speak otherwise. But I am here for peace. You have appealed to my mercy. But Lord Samuel, this is not the first time your house has had to appeal to that mercy. To King Daeron's mercy. This is the second time. In almost as many years. This is the second time in a decade that the Reach has risen up against the crown. And you will find that mercy runs down a very short road. Targaryens can handle a burning. No heat, no fire can injure a dragon. But we remember when we have been burnt.
My grace.
And I do not believe that I can extend that mercy a second time.
And what of Summerhall? My grace, what of the atrocities committed there? The Reach remembers too. And the Reach will remember that your house, a prince of your house, burned innocent children and wards alive, his own men alive, and as I witnessed myself, your grace, The prince burned too. A Targaryen burned.
Not so, my lord. Prince Aegon lives. Returned to the Red Keep by all accounts.
His teeth bare at that.
And
His eyes go wide.
I think Mara sees this and kind of steps in before he says something he shouldn't. Then we are grateful that you have not suffered the same losses from Summer Hall as many houses have.
Were he my son, I feel I could answer for his crimes, but I cannot. And unfortunately, his father cannot answer for them either.
I am sorry, Your Grace. Your losses. Truly.
As I am sorry for yours, but we are moving away from the matter at hand. You bring me conditions for your surrender, but I am not hearing any solid reason behind why the crown should grant them.
If I may, my liege, there is a simple question that may define precisely their reasonings and their allegiances. Lady Mara.
She finally turns, just for a moment, doesn't turn her back to Baelor out of respect, but turns enough to open her body up to being spoken to by Simon. And it's only once her head has turned away from Baelor that Simon will, and probably Samuel will see her kind of suck in a breath between her teeth, like she's steeling herself or something, and just looks you dead in the eye.
You speak of a brighter future. This, I concede, is the goal of all us gathered here. You speak of a better path that your children might walk. But still I wonder, does that path lie under the banner of Targaryen? Or the Blackfyre pretenders?
This war, this rebellion, it has never been about the name of the man who sits the Iron Throne. Perhaps it has been for Blackfyre, and for your family, Your Grace, of course. But for everybody else in between, for the people who would never sit that throne regardless of who wins the war. It has never been about who is king, but who gave them hope, who made them feel like they would be listened to, that they had power within their own kingdoms to make things better, to shape their kingdoms in a way that would be beneficial not just for them, but for the other four that sit around it. Our war was not about hating your family because we thought that you were the wrong line, that your blood lineage was less deserving than Blackfyre's. That was never what this was about. This was about trying to serve the Reach, to build a better future because we saw injustice, because we felt like our voices weren't heard, that we were sat at the far end of the table where you could barely even hear the conversation, let alone address it or move it in some meaningful direction. If House Targaryen, and she looks back at Simon, is the house that will bring those houses who have seen injustice, who have seen terrible things and felt no power to be able to change them or prevent them for future generations. If House Targaryen is the ones to shorten that table, to bring everyone closer, to empower people to be able to build a better future, then yes, that is where our loyalties lie. We didn't back Blackfyre for hatred of your family, Your Grace. We backed them because they gave us the hope for the future that we wanted to shape in the Reach to be better. Not blood feuds. Just a better future. A fairer Reach. Where all of the houses that have to govern it have a seat at that table where they can be heard. And perhaps, like children, we did what children do and lashed out and got angry because we didn't understand how the game was being played. But certainly nothing we ever did was out of hatred or out of purposeful disloyalty based on bloodline or history. All we ever wanted was for the people in power, the people that we want to serve us in kind. And she turns back away from Simon.
I am sure the widows and orphans of Old Town and across the Reach do so sympathize with you, my lady.
Samwell's eyes have been getting wider and wider and wider since hearing that the Prince of Summerhall is in the Red Keep and not being held accountable and is alive. And he snaps a little bit at Simon's words and he says, "You coward, you little shit, I watched your nephew burn."
You get held by a couple of knights.
He tries to fight a little bit, but he cannot.
My dear Samwell Tarly. And he'll hold up the chains that he has gained over his 30 years of life. I have no nephew. I have no family.
I think that hits Samwell like a blow because he didn't, in his mind, until this moment, until this conversation, Simon was his friend. He's never known anything otherwise.
If you had convictions half as strong as my own, you would not be standing here. You would have done the decent thing and left a valiant corpse.
Forgive me, Your Grace, as she turns to Baelor and looks at the pair of them. Both of you, stop it. Stop it. This isn't about petty squabbling about who thought was allied with who. That is not why we're here.
Isn't it? You ally yourself with Blackfyre. You search for clemency, grasping at it as if there is ash left to smear upon your faces from the fire you lit yourselves.
And here we are, trying to put it out. Because we were wrong.
Jason, I want you to roll a persuasion taunt at Samwell, I think.
Sure. Happily.
And I'll give you a bonus dice as well for Baelor's part of the whole exchange as well.
I'll also throw in one of my bonus die as well.
Okay. Yeah, you got a couple. Perfect.
So that's 2 bonus die.
Mm-hmm.
All right. No penalty die, I don't think.
Nope.
Boop. That's 12.
Against my intrigue defense, that was just one degree of success.
Cool.
Aha!
I check in taunt now. What is your awareness rank?
My awareness rank is 3.
Okay, so it'd be 3, incoming, composure loss.
Okay.
I'm trying to decide. Oh man, this is tough. Do I have to change my disposition towards? Because I would have said it was affectionate. before.
Yeah, if that's where you would have started with Simon being on the scene, then yeah, that's where it is.
Yeah,
So
I don't think he's had time to
that.
change it, like, because he's so shocked that it hasn't registered yet. Like, it hasn't changed.
Just a taking up the glove and smearing across the face. Slap.
Yeah.
Or a gesture than anything. It's fine.
Okay. And then V, if you wanna take an action. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. She's still trying to convince Baelor of this is their truth, this is why they're here.
Yeah.
And also maybe making the point that she isn't particularly pleased at, not just her brother, but her husband having a miniature spat in the middle of this that is entirely irrelevant and personal. That she's trying to make it clear that she doesn't want to egg that on. Like, her whole point here isn't to derail this into a petty argument. Even if that's what they seem to be doing. Do I have a bonus dice in the screen somewhere?
Let's have a look. You do, yeah.
I'll use that as well.
Yeah, it's real spend them or lose them time, friends.
19.
Against Baelor's intrigue defense is 2 degrees of success.
Nice. It's not double though, is it?
It is not double.
So that's another 8 composure damage.
Okay.
God, how much Mara hurt and intrigue.
Yeah. I don't think I can roll high enough to hit his double. I'm not sure.
Never say never.
I mean, you've rolled maximum 3 6s, both of your rolls here.
Shit, you have, yeah.
Fuck.
All of the bonus dice. Jeez. Okay.
You also rolled perfect 6s on your ride roll. I think you've only rolled 6s tonight, every roll.
I won't anymore now that we've said it.
Roll 20 likes you
it now.
until you point it out.
You don't want to know what I sacrificed to roll 20 for this.
Is that why your background's blurry? There's just a chicken blood.
I'm actually just in a void.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not even an effect on the camera. Sorry.
It's all right. Baelor stands with a bit of difficulty, but he's definitely seen better healers than you have in the last few days. And he walks up to you, Samuel, and you're still being held by the 2 knights either side of you. Mara, you've got a knight's hand on your shoulder, but just one.
She doesn't make any attempt to shrug it off. She does kind of turn her body a bit so she can still try and keep Samuel's eye line, and she's giving him that look of do not rise to it, don't do it. It's the big eyes of mm-mm.
And Samuel, you are being forced to your knees by the 2 knights. Do you resist?
I think he's so surprised by Simon that he goes slack when Simon says, "I have no family." He goes slack, and so he doesn't resist.
Baelor leans down to you and he says, "The words," he looks at Mara briefly, "coming out of your mouths are betrayed by your actions and the attitude of your body and your face. You have to give me something better than this if I am truly to spare your life. But to be honest with you, Samuel, I worry regardless that you are not going to last the week."
He leans a little bit closer on his knees, almost close enough that he could kiss Baelor. And very quietly, he says, "I don't know if I can survive my wounds. Your Grace, you saw my stand. I faced you And Sir Corbray, I fought off an entire unit of your men alone. And the days since have been hard. I'm filled with fever. Dreams of my father. Dreams of a life that could have been. And still I stand before you and speak about peace in the Reach. I will give you what I can, and that is my sword, as long as I can wield it. That is my armies, the strongest in this realm. That is my words to my allies, who without them will fight you tooth and nail. Blood will spill in the fields. Sons will be without parents. Parents will lose their children. And still, the fields will drink. There is injustice here. I have committed injustice. Your house has committed injustice. And right now, my grace, you are the only one who can choose what justice is moving forward. I'm not asking for my life. I'm asking for time as much as I can have, so that others' lives can be spared. Believe it or not. But believe this. My wife was wrong when she said that this war had nothing to do with hatred. I do hate. I feel it in my heart. Not you, but your family. And I will still serve you if it's what's best for the realm.
Don, you've hit upon something here that I want to reward. So I want you to try and persuade him. So, make a check. I'm going to give you a +5 modifier. You can get a bonus dice assist from Mara as well for being here.
Okay.
And what was this about? Some marriage dice?
I get a keep die.
Okay. I want to give you a shot at this because you've kind of nailed the NPC's whole, motivations and stuff. So it's good tactics.
This will be +5 to whatever this is.
Yeah.
And then a bonus die for Mara. Does that change anything?
No, so as a bonus dice, it's not going to change anything.
No, because I got 2 5s. It's almost as high as I could roll. So an 11.
It's not quite enough. As I'm going to bring this intrigue to a close, as Baelor turns and the tent, even to your own perception, the outside world is silent. And he turns. He looks at Mara for a moment. And whether he intends it or not, Mara, you get the sense that you are in the same position as before, where he first spared the life, if you can call it that, of your first husband. But Baelor's words kind of come at you as if through water. You hear them first in your gut before your brain actually processes them. And Baelor says, Sir Samuel, you will serve me, you will serve the Red Keep, the Crown, you will serve the Seven Kingdoms by dying. I, Baelor Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone, the Hammer, command you to die.
I move to combat. I'm reaching for one of the swords, one of the guards near me, and I'm going to try to draw it and move on Baelor as fast as I can.
Okay. Let me get a guard up here at some point. Hang on a sec. Okay, I'll need you to roll an agility test for me, please.
Okay.
So, bear in mind, right now you're on your knees and in a grapple, basically. But yeah, you can try and reach for a sword. But this is going to be a kind of quickness of what happens.
Okay.
They're going to roll a 7.
You have a small chance. A 6.
Okay, so in that, based on the kind of initiative, so rather than doing an awkward kind of holding my action to see what happens, you try and reach for that blade, but it's kind of sluggish, it's a bit cumbersome, and so you're kind of snatching for the hilt, and the guard that is, well, you're right-handed, so like, what makes more sense? Kind of maybe the blade just next to you. And so the guard can see that, and so he pushes you down into the ground. And I can't remember what the flipping grapply type rules are, but let's roll off like athletics or something. Strength. Sure.
Okay.
19. Ooh, beefy boys,
It's
these
really
ones.
good. I can't possibly beat that with all my wounds, but
Fair.
Roll anyway.
I got
Yeah.
a 5.
Yeah, so with just such a disparity and because of your wounds, that push down into the ground, and he just takes both arms behind you, and pain is shooting up your arms around your shoulders and then back down your spine as you're held into this position down on the floor. Another guard comes and quickly binds your hands behind you, and you are stood up again. Baelor steps over to the absent seat, picks up Lady Forlorn, and steps over to you, and looks at you silently for a second, before turning to you, Mara, and saying, "My lady, the last time I made a judgment on a husband of yours, I did not give you the grace of your last words to him. Do you have some now?"
She looks at Samuel. What is he doing? Is he looking at her now that Baelor's addressed her?
The pain shooting up through Samuel's body as they bind him, he gives it his all, right? Samuel's fast, Samuel's very strong, but Samuel probably is close to dying anyways. He looks almost translucent. That's how pale his skin is. He's not been breathing properly, so it's starting to turn a little purple too. His eyes are bloodshot red, and they are entirely hazed over right now. And he's not looking at Mara. He's squinting forward in confusion at Baelor.
I suppose if I ask you for mercy, none will be granted.
Baelor looks down at the floor.
And could I please ask for the honor to have the last words with my husband in private? Your Grace, please.
Roll me a convince check.
Do I get the marriage vow bonus here?
Are you trying to, like, maintain the marriage? I think that's almost impossible at this point.
I think it's less about maintaining the marriage, but Mara knows now that she can't talk Baelor out of this. Samuel just signed his own death warrant by losing his shit. That she wants, at least, if this is the end, in some ways for it to end on their terms, to say whatever they have to say to each other without having this audience, because what can you really say in front of this audience? Those are going to be the last things that anyone hears, at least from him. She doesn't know about her, and she wants there to be some dignity in what is effectively the end of their marriage, where this isn't on display.
Jason?
Yeah, I just had a thought. Can I give Mara a help dice in this by sort of standing up and saying, "My lord, you know me to be a loyal servant to the crown. If privacy is not granted, then perhaps some degree of it. I will personally oversee their words and ensure that no attempt to escape is made."
He slowly nods, kind of more of a bow of his head, and then he looks to all of his guards and he gives a short, quick nod. And the two guards that are holding you, Samuel, push you forward, let you fall again, and then they all file out and close the tent flaps.
So who's now left in here?
It's the two of you and Simon.
Yeah, I would say that the vagabonds are being like posted outside the tent at like all points of egress.
Oh yeah,
and
so are the Targaryen guards. You can hear
so
and you
it's
can
like-
see the shadows of soldiers encircling the entire tent,
Peeking in every couple of seconds.
Yeah, and I think
peeking
he
under
would
the
walk-
tent flap.
I wouldn't put it past one of the pirates to be like, "What the fuck's going on here?"
Somebody
Or
underneath.
Ren's just worked her way into one of the trunks or something. Just slipped in. Wait,
Mara will briefly regard Simon without that same burning in her eyes as she just nods. And almost feeling like she's floating, like she's not really there, she walks very slowly and unsteadily across the floor to Samuel. And she pulls him up. And I think she probably unbinds his hands, seeing that there's no real need for this if he's so weak. And she pulls them round in front of her and holds on to them and presses her forehead against his. And she's trying so hard not to cry and failing horribly.
When Samuel falls, he falls hard, like he's still in most of his armor. So the weight of that armor is like crushing on the side of his ribs, which is already wounded. And he kind of, the way that he turns, it's almost like he curls up into fetus position as well as he can in his armor. That's how he falls.
She'll pull him up if she can, but by the front of the armor, into her lap if she can, any way to get close to him, and just leans down. I don't know how to fix this. There isn't anything I can say. I can't stop it.
He doesn't really look at you. He's just kind of looking out, and there's still that same glazed confusion in his eyes. And he speaks, it almost doesn't sound like his voice when he talks. He says, "Father, my friends are calling me Little Butcher. They won't stop. Little Tarly Butcher."
And her heart breaks all over again as she cradles him almost in her lap and leans down to his ear and strokes his hair covered in sweat and dust. It's okay, son. No one's calling you that anymore. I'm here. It's okay. You're not a butcher. You're my husband and the man I love. The only man I've ever really loved. And she kisses him on the forehead and draws back a bit to try and see if that clarity has returned to him or not.
It doesn't.
She holds him as close as she can. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this is where life has brought us. And I'm sorry that I have failed you by not having the words to fix this. But if I make it out of this alive, I promise you I will do everything for our house, your house. And she whispers, I love you again. And she just holds him there for a moment, for as long as she can. She doesn't even care to tell anyone that she's done saying everything she can say because she can't get the words out. She's just cradling him in her lap, crying into the crook of his neck quietly, trying to remember all of the good things. The year-long worth of travel before either of them had admitted how they felt. All of the smiles, the laughter on the way here, closing her eyes, trying to block out the tent around her, Simon's presence, the sound of the guards, trying to block out knowing that any minute now someone's going to come in and separate them. But she just grips onto him like her life depends on it and holds him there and just tries to comfort him if he keeps going on about the Tarly butcher. It just tries to, almost motherly in a way, like comforting a child. But she doesn't let go. She will sit there for as long as anybody lets her sit there and hold him.
It is the first time in a very, very long while that you felt a kind hand on your shoulder. Simon doesn't say anything.
She briefly reaches up just to brush his fingers with her own before she wraps her arms back around Samwell and just whispers very gently, everything's going to be all right. You protected me, our house, and you made me happy, and I love you, and I'm sorry. And she'll sit there until somebody comes in and tells her she can't and physically pulls her away. She will just sit there cradling him, holding him.
You might feel Simon step back maybe a step or two, reacting to something, but you don't hear the tent flap open. But you do feel then the presence of a few people, just a couple of people step into the tent.
She doesn't look up. She doesn't move. She's still got her face buried into the crook of his neck.
At the corner of your eye, you see the glint and the familiar kind of watery pattern on the blade of Valyrian steel. And then you are pulled up.
And she will fight, not necessarily against the guards, but she doesn't let go. She'll hook her fingers into his armor, onto his clothing. It's not even that she means to. She's not in control of herself in this moment.
You think you hear her stop, but you're not sure. But you aren't forcibly removed from holding Samwell. And through the tears, suddenly, with a ringing swing of a high-pitched but almost vibrato kind of like tone, Samuel's head falls off. And there's blood all over your lap and the floor.
I don't think she lets go of his body. I don't think she even registers what's happened. And if she has, she's not acknowledging it. She's just a heap over him. She doesn't care what anyone in this room thinks. She doesn't care, even when the back of her mind tells her that he's dead and gone. She just can't let go. She doesn't look at anybody. She keeps her eyes shut. The longer she keeps her eyes shut, the less real it is.
The way that Samuel's head rolls and falls, even though she has her eyes shut, it lands in such a way that his eyes are open still. And it's almost like he's looking at her as she's shut her eyes. And in death, his eyes seem clear.
Soon, his head is gathered up by another knight in the tent and taken away. And you are eventually parted with the body that is carried out by a couple of Silent Sisters on a stretcher. And strangely, you find yourself again alone in that tent with Simon.
I imagine that they haven't even pulled her very far. She doesn't fight it after that. She's just pulled, and she pulls like she's made of, like she's a rag doll. And I imagine she's still sitting on the floor, as if he was still there, laid in her lap, just drenched in blood, staring down, not even really seeing.
I'm sure there was some perfect moment where all of this could have been avoided.
And it's Simon's voice that breaks her out of wherever she is right now. She looks up, and like her eyes are swollen and puffy and red. She barely look at him.
Where you and he might have delighted in more honest loves. Where banners were not raised.
Do you see the world we live in, Simon? Banners are always raised. In war or otherwise. But don't stand there and talk to me like you're my brother. Like you're somehow sorry. For my loss, don't do it. How dare you?
He'll stand and actually kneel before her. The mask and the rod laid to the side. And just sit staring.
You have no family. So don't talk to me like I'm still your sister. Don't talk to me like you're sorry, like you care, like you feel bad. If you'd have felt bad, you would have talked to me at the tournament after Marcia tried to murder me. You wouldn't have stood there gloating about treason that we already knew we committed, if you cared. So I am grateful that your ear to the prince bought me 5 more precious minutes. The only person I had left. But forgive me if I don't want your sympathy.
He'll Switch to High Valyrian. Skroso ave enkan. Blenoti kostion. Jorelio dori. Dauruso ave enkan.
And she looks at him and she tries to figure out the words, but her brain isn't pulling the High Valyrian that she knows right now. It just sounds like words to her.
What do I owe you?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Do you have something to say, Simon? Because if not, could you leave me in my grief? Or would you like to go out there and point out to the prince that I am equally as guilty and deserve that blade just as much?
You feel a hand on your cheek, and he rests his forehead on yours.
She doesn't move away. This anger is real, but some of it is also faux anger. It's that wall going up.
I dread the day where I will stop loving you. He'll stand. Bow to her. Collect his rod and mask.
And before, even though she can see he's moving to leave, she takes in what he says and then takes in a deep breath and a hard swallow and looks at him and just says, "Get out. Get out." And then her voice rises as she finds herself standing and she's screaming it at him, still drenched in blood, just over and over again.
Calmly, surprisingly calmly, he puts on the mask. The fool's gold darkened by the blood on the floor. The rod grasped within his hands, twirled once and then twice. And he turns to leave.
She does the thing where she follows him out as if she's chasing him out, even though he's leaving of his own accord. And once the tent flaps close again in front of her face, I think there's just a corner, the edge of this tent between a chair and probably a trunk. She just pulls herself into the smallest space that she can find that's dark. And she just sits there curled up, staring out at that bloodstain in the center of the tent. She's not even trying to necessarily like hide from the guards who she's sure are posted all around, but she just can't be in the center of what feels like a very, very big space right now, even if it isn't. She just doesn't want to be seen.
Simon's grip on the rod shivers as he hears the screams. And then when it devolves into silence, it stills. He collects himself and makes way to the acolytes.
Eventually, guards begin to come into the tent again and begin to kind of make good the space for his grace and his small court here that he's got, basically. And they take you outside. They begin to walk you, and you're flanked by a couple of guards and a couple in front, towards a holding area you can see. Hunter and the other guard that accompanied you are now sat down in that holding area. Coming towards you, Frog March, just a bit like you are, kind of silhouetted by that force again, that group of troops just on the horizon. See flecks of yellow and black in the banners. Well, there are many fewer banners now actually flying from that host. You see the greying auburn and ginger hair of Costain, Lord Mathos, walking in the opposite direction to you, walking towards the tent that you've just left, essentially being frog marched himself towards it, flanked by Targaryen guards.
This doesn't look like he's arrived in a friendly greeting kind of way. I'm assuming he looks like he's being taken in the same way we were.
There is like, and you're kind of used to it. This is the kind of stereotype you have in your head of Costain. There's like a quiet confidence about him, like he's got some magic trick up his sleeve that he thinks he's going to be able to maybe get out of this. He has that quiet confidence about him as he gets marched up towards that tent, and he exchanges a look with you just as you pass each other, and he sees you coming just as you're a few feet away from each other, and he looks at you. He doesn't say anything just yet, but he kind of looks at you in recognition.
Can Mara take a moment, because like she doesn't fight her guards after this, but there's a moment where if she can, she just wants to break free of them for a second, not to go very far, but just to almost interrupt their walk through to walk up to Costain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And she kind of almost politely kind of shrugs the guards off and just walks over him, doesn't run, very calmly, almost too calmly, walks over to him and interrupts, so they have to at least stop for a moment and they have to go and catch up. And she moves right up to him where it's uncomfortably close. There is blood on your hands too. I hope you see the same fate. I hope you rot like you should. For everything that you have done. For everything that you have pushed and pulled others to do with the strings that you sink in with your claws. And she spits in his face and will then very politely go back towards her guards and continue to be walked.
Okay. He and the guards stand aghast, and he turns back as you walk away towards that holding cell. And he considers to himself what kind of mood he might find Prince Baelor in. As you hear from the guards that are stood around, the soldiers that are just kind of hanging around or eating some rations or speaking amongst themselves. Oh, he's probably come to try and seek his own salvation, surrender himself. And then one of them says, I heard he was going to try and capture those two.
Can Mara hear this?
Mm-hmm.
She'll turn to them. Is this Targaryen guards? Or
Mm-hmm.
She'll turn to them. Costain has come to do what he will always do. Weasel his way out of trouble and back into good books, so he can continue hurting and pulling the strings. If you thought that House Tarly was lying about being an ally, she looks back in Costain's direction.
Costain's walking now, and he's almost at the tent.
If you thought we were vipers, there is the rattlesnake. And she's not even really angry about it. She's just, it's one of those things that when you're emotionally overloaded, you seek to hit out at anything else. She doesn't care that these guards are Targaryen guards, but she wants to make it very clear that Costain is not to be trusted. That, if they thought that we were bad, they've just brought in the worst liar of them all into their camp.
And as you walk away, you hear them say, we'll just have to see, I guess. And that is where we'll finish up.
I have one question. One. Is it safe to assume that Mara is seen by a healer at some point? Because I'm assuming that if they're going to shove them in a holding cell, they don't want them just dying and keeling over all by themselves. But if so, Mara wants to basically tell the healer that she suspects she could be pregnant and see if the healer can find out if she is. Because I've made rolls and I haven't heard anything. And I'm never going to assume it's no unless you tell me it's a no, because you make me make terrible, suspicious D6 rolls.
See, the problem with things like this, where we have multiple seasons and they have to end at some point, is you try and wrap up everything in a nice, neat bow.
Well, it won't be wrapped up because we don't know whose it is.
I guess we'll just never know. Except on After the Fire coming up. No. I
was just like, you're really going to do this to me, Sam, and reveal it there?
I will answer on After the Fire.
Okay.
But within the canon, we just don't know.
Yes, left ambiguous.
Yeah, left ambiguous. Well, that's it, friends. That is it. Thank you so much for playing. We'll do the gushy stuff on our After the Fire stuff. But until then, big thanks to everybody, obviously. Big thanks to Jason for popping back for this last episode. I'm so glad that you could join us. It's probably a lot, but give us a quick how you're doing and where we can find you on the internet if you want to be found and all that goodness. Don, how are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm great. Look, Samuel Tarley got exactly what Samuel Tarley deserved. He tried his best. He gave it his best shot. He got exactly what he deserved. And I loved how it played out. I really enjoyed this session. It was great having Jason back too. I thought that was very appropriate. And yeah, I thought the role playing was great. And I could gush, but like you said, we'll do that in after the fire. I love this campaign. Samuel Tarley was a challenging character to play.
I'm sure, yeah.
And despite that, I was really rooting for him and Mara, and I really have enjoyed every step along the way. I thought this Sam, she did a great service to everybody who's played this campaign in tying up just enough and leaving just enough open-ended that you can imagine what the future might be in many different directions. And I think that's the best way you possibly could have ended this campaign. So I just had a fantastic time. I couldn't be happier. So thank you, and thank everybody for being good scene partners.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal scenes tonight. Absolutely phenomenal.
I loved them. Yeah. And for Virginia for being okay with me dragging you into war so much, knowing how badly it was going to go, and
to be fair,
we made a good run. I know you were here for it.
Too much, you know,
you were here for it. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely amazing time. This campaign means the world to me. If you're watching and you want to know where I am and you don't know how to find me, I'm Don. I'm a professional game master. That's what I do full time. I also write, for publishers and games and whatnot. You can find me on Twitter if you really want. Sometimes I post at Jonathan Fry. I've got a Patreon. If you want to play a game with me and you sign up for my newsletter on Patreon, then you get first dibs when I have open seats. I think I'll be starting at least one Star Wars campaign later this year, maybe two, because the interest has been pretty high. But that's it. I am so happy with how this went. I couldn't be happier. Thank you.
Good. And I cannot enthuse enough about how good of a DM Don is, especially when it comes to something like D&D, but all the other games as well. So if I can get anyone in chat right now to have a look at that Patreon, or to then apply and then obviously kind of buy a seat on one of your games, please do it, because I had an absolutely phenomenal time playing for a good about 3 years almost. I think it was a couple of years,
almost,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 2.5 years.
In our Dark Sun game as my Thrycreen disaster boy. He was just great. So yeah, do go check out Don's Patreon if you can, and have a look at all the kind of levels that you can kind of back him and get yourself a seat at one of those Star Wars games, because I saw that come up on the Discord and I was like, oh, nice.
I just want to add, I second this. I play in one of Don's games and it's this dramatic too. It's great.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely worth it.
Do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I third this with no experience in Don's game.
Thank you so much, Don. And V, how you doing?
I'm good. That was
Some
emotional.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I got way
deep
too into
tonight.
that. I could feel myself wanting to cry. Mara is this whole other personality in the back of my head. No, this was amazing. I couldn't, like, I think a lot of us for a long time have been like, however it ends is how it ends, and we're going to be happy with that. I'm just amazed that Mara's still alive, because quite frankly, I didn't think she'd make it this far, considering, you know, she went to war and didn't exactly, you know, hide in a nice safe castle the whole time.
You've got yourself out of scrapes just constantly.
Like I said in the pre-stream, you know, things that Mara has survived: 2 Valyrian steel swords, a dog, and a shadow cat, and the wrath of a stepmother. None of those have managed to kill her. And I get to poke at Susie and say that Mara outlived Miria. I love you really, Susie. But no, this has been amazing. Sam, thank you for running such an awesome campaign.
That's okay.
This has definitely been one of my favorites to play in. I've never played a character this long or been so attached to one. So it's kind of cool to see, you know, whether she died or lived. This was a great ending, and obviously to Don for having to put up with, you know, me being the other half of Westeros's worst rebellion couple. It's been great to play and scheming behind the scenes, because it's so rare that you get to scheme the way that you do in games like this. It's usually lots of Don going, so I've got this plan, and me going, oh dear God, what is it? And then running with it. And obviously having Jason back, my in-show brother and adopted brother outside of the show. I'm sorry that Mara didn't have nicer things to say to you, but you know, her husband was just killed, so
She had a lot on her
time for a
mind.
family reunion, gonna be honest.
No, it's not timely.
Yeah, if you want to find me, I'm on Twitter at Tabletop Horde. I'm not streaming at the moment because work is many. I'm also a professional TTRPG person doer. I do too many things for me to list here. That's about it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
A lot has happened.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. So that just leaves me to thank Jason for like bookending this campaign. Really, we noticed that when we were chatting in our DMs the other night, where it was like, actually, this is like quite a nice little kind of mirroring thing. We started off with Simon after my little prologue, and you know, he kind of almost, in a way, wraps up the campaign as well. Comes in with some ammunition that's been building over the course of actually kind of all 6 seasons in a way.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, with all the like tax stuff that I kind of had, just, you know, a little undercurrent of the kind of reasoning behind what was going on with like Costain and everybody. And then Faye gets that to you and smuggles that in. And this, in a way, was all kind of handled through the Discord and through just little chats and DMs and stuff. So actually to have you kind of bring it on screen was really, really cool.
Glad to bring it home. And Susie is correct in chat. We were the first 3 through the gate. Session 1 all those years ago. Yeah.
Oh, back when things were happy.
Happy-ish.
The wedding, right before anyone died and terrible things happened.
Where I told you your dad had just died.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, like the first 2 minutes of the scene were happy.
Happy wedding. When Don wasn't allowed in.
I fought with Sir Oliver fought with a Blackfyre lance.
Yeah. And then he avoided Mara forever after that, so she couldn't tell him off for it. I will still never forget that showdown with Lord John being a dickhead right outside the wedding chapel.
What a surprise. Anyway.
Who knew?
And then you both committed treason.
That's the short version.
The abridged version.
Yeah.
We had a wedding. Some stuff happened in between, and that one was executed for treason.
Yeah. But like, obviously, I'm so glad we've had you back. But there's a fair amount has kind of happened, I guess, for you a little bit in that time. Like you've released stuff and stuff like that. What's been on the cards for you? What are you working on at the moment?
For myself, I am currently taking a little bit of a break from writing. We just got done with Archon, which Virginia so lovingly edited there at the last. Archon, A City of Neon Daylight. It's a system-agnostic cyberpunk setting that was created by myself and the ever-lovely Kiana Shaw. They were instrumental in sort of getting all that together. We also had collaborations with B. Zelda, Sailor Scout, Austin, and Emmer. I unfortunately don't have all their Twitter tags on brain, but
on like speed dial.
Yeah, on like speed dial. But we had just finished that. We are getting into print production for that very, very soon. I hear within the next couple of months at the very least. So fingers crossed on that.
Brilliant.
Outside of that, there is another project that Kiana and myself have been working on called Blood on My Name, which is a little wretched and alone game that we've cooked up. More details forthcoming, but keep an eye out for that. But, yeah, it'll probably be there Twitter since I've unfortunately absconded with the arrival of Mr. Musk.
Okay.
But if you do want to, if you want to dredge up the archives of my Twitter, it's at JustJason, please, PLS. And yeah, you can usually find my stuff in and around the internet. Just keep an eye out for it and be happy, be healthy. That's all I'll say.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, as for me, you can find me around the internet at RPG Webby. Obviously, as I said kind of at the top, this wraps up the kind of 2 games that we've got going on Follow Black Cats at the moment. But literally yesterday, Susie, James, and I were just chatting. We were catching up about Cursed Captains of Cthulhu, which is our next tabletop RPG project that we funded via Kickstarter. And we were talking about these wrapping up for a little while, and we were talking about, what we could do in the meantime. I am cooking up another Star Trek campaign for eventual gameness on the channel. We're also peer pressuring Susie into running a bit more Game of Thrones as well. So hopefully we'll have something from her too. But in the meantime, if you want to keep supporting us, and it's not necessarily on the channel, we do have a few games out there in the ether. So we obviously designed and published the Spy game, which is our first Kickstarter. You can just about see behind me, thanks to the poor color correction on my camera. That's what we were playing on Wednesdays with Hexcrawl was the campaign. But you can buy that over at blackcatsgamingshop.com, Modifius.net as well, and other reputable game stores, because we're in distribution too, so it's out there in the world. So you might even see it on some shelves if you go out into the real world. Then we've also, out on the internet, got a few kind of one-shots or smaller games, including our Adventures of the Delivery, like takeaway drivers, which is just a kind of silly one-shot about having to deliver takeout to people, but being, assaulted by an alien invasion or vampires or whatever you decide is the thing that is happening. We've also got a couple other things that James has worked on that, for the life of me, I can't remember the names of, but
it's,
we've got
Imps for the Win, and I think
new,
it's
wasn't it?
Yeah, it's Imps for the Win, and then there's one about coming back off of a vampire stag do, where you have to try and avoid the sun, that I can't remember the name of, and I should, because I did the layout for it, but I can't.
Isn't it like The Morning After the Night Before, or
Morning
something
After the
like
Night
that?
Before, I think that might be it.
Yeah, so if you fancied being a vampire at the end of a bachelor party or a bachelorette party, trying to get home before the sun comes up, then grab that around the internet. They are available. You can find our kind of publishing pages over on like Drive-Thru RPG. We haven't yet, I don't think, set up an itch, or maybe we have, maybe James has, maybe I remember that correctly. So check us out, go and search for us around the internet there. Follow Black Cats or blackcatsgaming.com. But until after the fire, this is us signing off, friends. So please, thank you so much for being with us, for watching our finale, and to everyone who's been watching for these last few years. I never thought it would be this long, this big, this deep, but it has been so good. So thank you so much for staying with us. We're absolutely thrilled that you have stayed with us, and we've keep seeing people pop up in chat and scream with us as the juicy fruits go off. But yeah, we'll see you hopefully in a couple of weeks or thereabouts for after the fire. Until then, and until we're back on with more games, please take care of each other. Please, mask up if you're out and about, and take care of yourselves too. Yeah, from us for a little while, it's sayonara. See you later, everyone. Night night.